I'm Darylle and I'm a piercer at A&M. I've been piercing almost 12 years and I met Charlotte through work.
I'm Charlotte. I've been piercing for nearly 9 years now. Darylle actually taught me to pierce back in the day. Today we're going to be talking through some of your questions, some myths and some facts about piercing.
So I've been piercing with A&M for just a few months when the Bristol store opened in November 2022. So I'm quite new to the team.
I've been piercing in our Box Park Shoreditch branch for coming up to 4 years now.
There's a little bit of history between Shah and I and how we came to be colleagues and then later on best friends. I'd been working in a little tattoo shop in the local area that we both grew up, and I'd been piercing there, I want to say maybe like 3-4 years. We were a really busy piercing studio and we were always looking for new staff, like looking to train people up. Anyway, I think Charlotte was quite a regular as a piercing customer, so she used to come in and had this whole collection going on, and I think that she was just really sweet, really thoughtful, really friendly, and I thought we just maybe did we approach you or did you approach us about it?
I think it was a bit of a back and forth. I think I'd asked you a couple of times, and then it was sort of right place, right time that I came in and you guys were really looking.
So we had this very adorable little goth girl and just started getting her in, trained her up. I just remember that it was tongues that you were absolutely terrified of and just refused to do.
I just hated them.
Refused to do for
Which
so
I find
long.
A lot of piercers hate. It's one of the ones that a lot of piercers still hate. So
it's a fussy piercing. There's a lot to think about and a lot to consider. Ultimately, when you're trying to hold somebody's tongue outside of their mouth, they naturally want to put it back in. It's so stressful, but
we do a trade-off where it'd be like, you do the tongues, I'll do the dermals. Sorted.
I suppose we worked together for a long time, maybe like 5-6 years.
Yeah.
Obviously, I taught Charlotte how to pierce, but then I feel like once we stepped out of that environment and Char got involved with A&M and the way the piercing industry has evolved and developed and the information is so much more vast and spot on, so I feel like the student became the master and she then kept me up to date with all of the current information, and basically I feel like we've learned off of each other.
Yeah, full circle, with colleagues again.
Yeah.
I've now stepped into the role of piercing mentor, so I'm helping with recruiting, I'm helping with opening our new stores. With the piercing industry, it's so exciting, it's constantly evolving, so we just want to make sure that as A&M we're evolving with that. Watch this space.
To start, we're going to get into some piercing myths and some myth busting. Maybe some common themes that people think and assume about piercings.
We're going to be setting you straight.
So a common piercing myth is that you can shatter your cartilage. Now, you can't technically shatter the cartilage. However, it is often in reference to having a piercing done with a gun. So having a piercing done with a gun is generally considered unsafe practice now. We don't do it here at A&M. And it can just be really aggressive on the skin, on the cartilage, to a point that it can damage the area, potentially just have a piercing that doesn't heal.
And I think moving on from that, another misconception is that being pierced with a needle hurts more than a gun, which is actually not the case at all. Being pierced with a needle is a lot safer, a lot less abrupt, and generally just a lot more of a smoother piercing process as well as a healing process.
Another quite dramatic myth that
I used to hear all the time.
Yeah.
That if you get your tragus pierced, it can paralyse your entire face, which obviously sounds so terrifying, but that's never happened in the history of tragus piercings.
Yeah. It's not something you have to worry about when you're having a tragus piercing.
Yeah.
Here at A&M, it's all about finding your perfect piercing. These are the options that we use to pierce in store. So we've got all of our jewellery examples and we have these on display in every single store.
We've got 2 different materials that we pierce with. Both are hypoallergenic. There's something to fit everyone's budget. So we're going to go through some of them with you today to find your perfect piercing.
So there's no right and wrong when it comes to piercings, but obviously we want to take into consideration the anatomy of your ear when it comes to placement and obviously deciding what you're going for in terms of jewellery. Everybody's ears are completely different. Nobody's completely symmetrical, so it is a very unique experience and we want to make sure that we're catering for that. We really work with you in store whilst you're choosing your jewellery, and if you've not necessarily got a piercing in mind, you definitely we can really help to figure that out with you as well.
And definitely tell us about your lifestyle and your jobs, because for instance, if you're a vet or a nurse, you're constantly wearing in-ear stethoscopes, there's obviously some piercings that would suit you a lot better than others. So feel free to have a chat with us.
So we have carefully curated this stunning example for you.
We've got a couple of lobe piercings here with hoops. Now hoops we don't necessarily recommend being pierced with, just because they prolong the healing process a little bit, and they're also a little bit more likely to irritate a piercing. However, we at A&M have designed some hoops specifically for piercing, so the actual bar is straight and it gives the illusion of a hoop. So you have the benefits of a hoop without the long healing process.
Lobes are definitely one of the most popular piercings in A&M, and also we really see such a wide demographic of people. I think often you assume your lobes might be your first ever piercing, but sometimes people don't get it done until they're like 30, 40, 50. I think we've even seen like 80-year-olds come in and having their first set of lobes, which is really exciting to contribute to somebody's brand new piercing.
Yeah. Something that I've seen a lot more recently is a stacked lobe as well, which I love doing stacked lobes.
Me too.
It's a lobe piercing above the original lobes, so it can either have a vertical look or a triangular look.
It's a nice gap filler, I think, especially when you're at a point like myself where you've had all of the ear piercings and now you're just filling the in-between. We have got a conch piercing here. So this is a cuff, so we've got it making it look like it's a hoop, but we would always initially start off with a bar in the conch piercing. It is a really popular piercing at the moment. Lots of people are exploring this and I really love it. It's a smart piercing. It kind of makes you look a bit busy, but without having to necessarily overbear loads of jewellery in the ears. Also being really versatile where you can wear a hoop in it later once it is healed.
It's also a really good piercing for people that don't have the right anatomy for a daith piercing. You can get jewellery that sort of almost emulates a daith piercing, so it's a good one to go for if you can't get a daith.
So the conch is a really nice piercing to accommodate a more decorative piece. So we've got some really nice examples in our solid gold range. If you wanted to have something a little bit fuller, a bit busier, it does really fit that space and that anatomy really nicely. I mean, you can pretty much put anything in there in terms of jewellery style, but maybe have something a little bit smaller, a bit more smarter and discreet, or if you wanted to have something a bit more decorative, then it's going to fit that space really nicely.
That being said, I wouldn't pierce a conch with a hoop. Just again, they don't heal very well with hoops. It's going to cause you a lot of aggro. Best just to get it done with a really nice bar and then wait till it's healed, where you can change it to the hoop later on. Yeah.
We've also showcased the daith piercing, which we always pierce using a hoop initially, and we do try and recommend the sort of forward-facing style. So this one's a really good example. You've got the detail, but then also the gem that faces outwards. It's just really on display. So we want to be able to celebrate that with some appropriate jewellery. So a couple of really beautiful daith options. Again, so these are like the forward-facing styles. So you've got the gems along the outside. So when they are displayed in the ear, you're going to get the full benefit of that detail. We've got a couple of really nice examples for that specific piercing. And these are the yellow gold. So we've got solid gold, but they do often come in the white gold as well.
Oh, if you've got a slightly lower budget, then we obviously have some lovely titanium pieces for the daith. We currently just have some nice simple plain hoops. These come in a silver colour, a gold colour and a rose gold colour. Next we have the outer conch. In the ear here we've got a piece that I actually really love. It's a really nice statement piece, and that really is what an outer conch is about, I think. Like the daith, it's a really good place to showcase jewellery, so we have some really nice statement pieces.
And it's a good alternative. So for example, sometimes with the anatomy of your ear, you might feel that you've got like a thicker cartilage. Sometimes you see people with cartilage that kind of feels more like folded over. So you can't always have a cartilage piercing or a helix piercing. Basically, it might just not be suitable for your ear. So the outer conch, or sometimes called the flat, is a really good alternative to be able to have that kind of space filled on your ear, but it might work better for the anatomy of yours.
You can't put a hoop in the outer conch, so that's definitely something to bear in mind if you're wanting to get it pierced. We also see a lot of people getting them a little bit further over. The nice thing about the outer conch is you've got a really wide sort of range of space to pierce with. A lot of people will get them a little bit further over to sort of, I think they call it a faux rook.
Yeah.
Rooks can be quite hard healers, or sometimes people don't have the anatomy for a faux rook, so a lot of people will often get an outer conch a little bit further over to look like a faux rook piercing.
Yeah.
One of the pieces I really love in an outer conch is our lotus piece. It's quite small, but it's really decorative. It's such a classic looking piece, works really nicely in either an outer conch or a faux rook.
An alternative, this is one of our solid gold pieces, and it's just like a little sort of 4-dot, really smart. It's decorative but still keeping it really simple, and that would look really, really nice in an outer conch as well. We've also featured on this ear a forward helix and a helix piercing. These are pretty similar when it comes to healing rates and comfort. We've just fit 2 really nice examples of our solid gold range. So a good one to have in this area on the helix is maybe one of the slightly bigger, more decorative pieces. If it fits nicely into that part of your ear, it's going to showcase the jewellery nicely but also not be super hazardous. You won't really find it's one that you catch a lot because it's quite tucked into the area. And then we would often recommend going with a slightly smaller piece in the forward helix because you probably will find it's a little bit more susceptible to being caught, or with it being right in your hairline and so close to your face. 2 really, really nice options that kind of like fills the space, quite strategic placements, but without being, again, really super overbearing or very fussy.
Although we recommend piercing these with studs, they both do work really nicely with hoops once healed, so versatile piercings. One really popular piece at the moment for a helix piercing is our beautiful solid gold constellation piece. I love that this piece looks like multiple piercings with the healing process of just one. We've also got some new bits, some colourful pieces that we've recently released. This one's really nice for the forward helix because although it's really simple, you've got a nice little pop of colour. We've got some greens, some purples, some pinks, and I think some blues as well. An honourable mention to the rook and the tragus piercing, which we didn't put on our ear, but you can see them here, they're really beautiful. The tragus and the rook, you can wear rings in them once they're healed. We also have some rook rings that we can pierce the rook with initially, specifically designed for a rook. Obviously that is anatomy dependent, so it's always worth just checking with your piercer first. Speaking of the rook, we have some curved bars which work really nicely if you don't have the anatomy for a hoop. They do tend to heal a little bit better than the hoops as well, but they've still got a nice bit of bling there.
And then in reference to the tragus, so we would always pierce that with a bar initially. I do find people tend to go for something more small and discreet when it comes to the style that they choose. So we've got a solid gold, really tiny little ball, which is just super smart, super delicate, and honestly just goes with any other collection of jewellery. So you can't really go wrong with it.
We're now going to talk you through what to expect before, during and after getting your piercing done. Before your appointment, I definitely recommend getting some good food in you, making sure you're hydrated, making sure you're definitely not intoxicated, and just that you've had a really good think about your placement and what you want. If you're not entirely sure, it's absolutely fine to come in and chat to our piercers, as that's what we're here for.
We also offer opportunity to have a consultation prior to a piercing appointment. So if you are just wanting to have a little chat and a discussion about something before committing to it, then it's definitely something we can work on with you as well.
Here at A&M, we pierce from ages 10 and up. Ages 10 to 15, you can get LO piercing, and 16 and up, you can get anything else on the ear.
It is really important, if you are under 16 and you are looking to have a piercing done with us at A&M, you will need to come accompanied with your parent, and both of you and your parent need to have your ID, because we need to have all of the information possible to make the whole process as smooth as possible for you.
In terms of ID, we need either a driver's license or a passport. We need the hard copy, so unfortunately we can't accept photos. If you have a different surname to your parent or guardian, then make sure you just bring a birth certificate or proof of guardianship so you can avoid disappointment on the day.
And if you're not sure or you have any questions, please get in touch with the store via email or phone call that you're looking to have your piercing done with.
The first thing you'll do when you come in for your ear piercing appointment is go through your consent form. This basically just makes sure that you're okay to get pierced, that you know what to expect with the healing process and whatnot. We will be here to talk you through it all, so any questions, we're right here for you.
It also gives you an opportunity to discuss any potential medical conditions that you want to double check or run past us, and just keep us completely informed prior to the actual piercing.
Once that's all done, you get to the exciting part, choosing your jewellery. So we will help you go through the jewellery depending on your anatomy, your lifestyle, and what piercing you're getting. You've got plenty of time to have a little look through, going through the titanium or solid gold, depending on your budget.
What's really helpful as well about our examples is that everything is on a clear acrylic stick, so that you can hold it up to that placement on your ear, almost try it out in the mirror beforehand. Everything has our pricing on it as well, so you can just keep track if you're looking to have something done with a budget in mind, and it just helps you know what to expect beforehand. So once you've filled out your consent form and chosen your style of jewellery, then the piercer will take you through into a really beautiful private private room. The idea that we really want to express when you're having your piercing done is that it's not an intimidating space. We want you to be super comfortable, and we'll take it completely at the pace that you feel ready for. So ultimately, once you've stepped into the room, we're just going to chat to you a little bit more. We're going to use our sterile setup, and initially we'll mark up the piercing. We'll mark that as many times as you want. If you're not dead set on the position, we are so here just to accommodate to what you're ready for and what you're after. So we will move that 5 times, 10 times until you've completely decided. The actual piercing process is always incredibly quick, and honestly, the idea of it is always a lot scarier than actually having it done. 9 times out of 10, our clients will walk out and think, oh my God, what was I even worried about?
People are definitely pleasantly surprised after getting a piercing, which is really nice.
Yeah, for sure.
So the idea that we can offer a nice, non-intimidating space also goes in line with not compromising health and safety. Cleanliness does obviously come at the top of our priorities. We pierce with needles, which may sound scary to some people, but they're definitely not as painful as scary as a gun. We use single-use needles, so they'll be opened in front of you.
So we will go over aftercare with you once you've had your piercing done, and we have it on a little leaflet because obviously a lot of the time you're probably really excited about what you've just had done, and we'll explain all this information and you potentially might not retain that information. So we will send you home with it written down as well, and just make sure that we're always contactable as well if there's anything you're not sure on or that you forget. Ultimately, we recommend that you use saline solution. We sell a saline solution. It's a super convenient spray bottle, and honestly, since I've started using that, it's made the entire cleaning aftercare process 10 times easier. We advise that you spray it on twice a day, every day, just around your everyday routine. So making sure that is after any kind of hair products, any kind of facial products. Once you stepped out of the shower, make sure you're giving it a nice clean, but consistency is definitely key.
Something I definitely add is keeping it dry is really important. So obviously you can shower, you're not expected to not shower for 6 months, but after showering or cleaning it, you just want to really gently pat the area dry with a clean paper towel, or even a hairdryer on the cold setting, just to make sure that moisture isn't sitting there and irritating your new piercing.
Another thing to mention is that we don't advise you touching or twisting your piercing. It's generally just going to lead to irritation and possible infection. So it's a really old school piece of advice that we don't actually recommend.
Yeah. We also don't recommend sleeping on your piercing to avoid it healing at an angle. Swimming, we also recommend avoiding for 4 weeks. After that, swimming is fine. Just make sure you're keeping it nice and clean after you get out of the pool or the sea.
Something we always take into account whilst doing your piercing is making sure that the bar is long enough to allow for that initial swelling stage. An option that we have for you once your piercing is healed, so totally depending on the time frame, but we do have a smaller bar option. So essentially we would just downsize it. And that just helps to continue a settling. So once you've got enough room on the bar, sometimes the length can encourage movement. So to reduce that movement, then we can fit a shorter bar in, and often it's a lot more comfortable as well. With this downsizing option, we essentially would just swap over the post of the bar to the next size down. So with titanium, that would be a cost of £10, and then with solid gold, it's a cost of £65.
And the time frame from this will depend from piercing to piercing, and it will depend on your anatomy. It can even depend on the time of the year. So it's always worth just chatting to your piercer and asking when they recommend you coming back for a checkup or a downsize. So generally for lobes, the healing time is around 3 months, and anything else on the ear that contains cartilage is around 6 to 12 months. It's really important to remember that this really massively varies from person to person, so it's always good just to be super patient, see how you personally get on.
So in order to give yourself the most successful healing rate or healing process, you need to be super consistent with your aftercare and just be patient. Ultimately, if you're doing everything right with the cleaning and everything that we advise, then you're going to give yourself the best chance of your piercing settling down. Okay, now for the fun part. We have some community questions sent in by you guys, so thank you very much. We really appreciate you getting in touch. First question, and this is a really common one. Can you re-pierce a piercing that has closed? The answer is usually yes. Obviously, it is at the discretion of the piercer at the time if we can feel the area, feel the scar tissue. Generally, we advise that you try and leave at least, ideally a year before thinking about having something re-pierced, but depends on the scarring. Something to bear in mind whilst piercing over scar tissue is that, one, it can cause the healing process to be a little bit more temperamental, and in some cases it can encourage the piercing to heal potentially on a slightly wonky direction once it's settled, but it is doable. It's not going to limit you.
So Katie has asked why her lobe piercing is taking so long to heal. This is a tricky one because, again, healing really varies from person to person. I have some friends that heal in a snap, whereas I am one of the unfortunate people that do take a long time to heal. So I would just keep persevering with it, keep going, be consistent. If you're unsure, maybe pop in to see one of our piercers who can just have a little look, check if there's anything that needs to be changed or anything that's going wrong.
Also, something to contribute, just make sure that you're really consistent with your aftercare and you're being really careful with products. If you're using makeup, moisturiser, hairspray, clean your piercing immediately after, just to discourage the irritation.
Piercing bumps are fairly common on a piercing through cartilage. They're usually due to irritation, either from product, from being knocked, from being slept on. So it's always worth popping in to see a piercer who can check if there's anything that needs to be changed before treating. However, hot chamomile compresses are really, really effective. Chamomile's anti-inflammatory with antimicrobial properties, really helps to get that piercing bump down.
Next question, how much space is needed for a stacked lobe? Not a lot.
Not a lot.
You don't need to have a particular amount of space. We can generally accommodate it in between whatever piercings that you have currently, and we can make it work for you, so nothing to really stress about.
I'd say the most popular piercing at the moment is probably a conch piercing. I see a very wide demographic of people coming in for conch piercings, and I love piercing them. I think they're so fun, they just instantly look incredible, they're very versatile.
Yeah, I think people are really exploring it at the minute. The way piercings have become so popular, the conch does seem to be a really nice one to go for. It's like a real good gap filler, but still keeping it quite subtle.
When you come in for your downsize, we can change the top as well as the post. Obviously it will be a little bit more costly than just changing the post, but it's definitely something we can offer.
How many piercings is too many piercings within 6 months? Well, it totally depends on the person. It's something we would assess with you at the time if we were to see you regularly. Generally, we only advise having a maximum of 3 piercings in one go, and we do offer 3 piercings within one service appointment.
Yeah, we wouldn't do more than 3 just because your body would struggle to heal everything at once. I definitely wouldn't recommend coming in for more piercings until your current piercings are healed.
Yeah.
We're always bringing out new piercing jewellery, and some of the newer pieces we've brought out are our colourful pieces. We've got some lovely greens, blues, purples, and I think they add really nicely to a stack.
Yeah.
We also offer solid white gold jewellery for those of you that prefer the silvery look to the yellow gold look.
And in our titanium range, we have silver tone, gold and rose gold. So there are plenty of options to suit you.
So in terms of combinations I don't recommend is anything that's in quite close concentration. So for instance, if you wanted a rook, a tragus and a dave, definitely wouldn't recommend that. There's just going to be a lot of swelling in one area. They're all quite hard healing piercings, so you don't want to put your body through that.
Another one that we generally try and steer away from is maybe having too many on both sides, because that's going to prevent you from being able to sleep comfortably and essentially just prolong the healing of everything.
And answering the phone as well. Obviously you're going to be bashing your ear about when you answer the phone, so you want a fresh ear while your other one's healing. Both gold and titanium are hypoallergenic, so there's not a piece that's going to necessarily heal better in terms of material. Going for solid gold is usually something people do when they want to go for a investment piece. The one thing about our solid gold is that it is designed in-house, so it's constantly evolving, constantly changing. It also is usually in line with our wider range of designs, so they're really great for curating your ear if you're buying other pieces from the shop floor. You do also get 15% off of anything on the shop floor after a piercing appointment, so it's a really great opportunity to sort of build that stack.
Hayley has asked us if a lobe piercing counts as 1 or 2. So we do count every piercing individually. So we would consider lobe piercings as 2 separate piercings. All of our jewellery is priced individually, but it means that you wouldn't necessarily be limited to having one style. You can mix and match.
Yeah, if you're sort of torn between 2 different pieces, it's quite nice to have one on each side. I see that a lot recently,
yeah,
and I think it's so cute.
Yeah, me too. What is my favourite piercing? I think I have a new favourite, and it's one of my stacked lobes. I've had one of the A&M pieces fitted. I literally love it. I'm finding spaces to accommodate these beautiful pieces.
Mine is definitely, it's an old piercing. Darylle actually did it for me years ago. It's my conch. However, I have put a piece of A&M jewellery in it, and I'm just obsessed with it. I'm definitely really biased when recommending it to customers.
Yeah. My personal funniest or most interesting piercing experience, so this was way back when I used to work in the tattoo shop, and I had a lady come in and ask for a microdermal on her toe. I said yes, of course, but I wouldn't do that now. It's also not a piercing that we offer at A&M, and I'm quite pleased about.
I think the most memorable piercing for me was fairly recently. It was last year. I got to pierce Paul Mescal's ear for a role. It's really fun to see that he's kept the piercing even after finishing filming.
I hope he thinks of you every time he looks at it.
I hope so too.
I've got a question. What's your favourite thing about piercing at A&M?
Obviously, I love all my colleagues, I love the beautiful jewellery, but I do love that we allow dogs onto the shop floor, obviously not in the piercing studios. I do love when you bring your furry friends in for us to have a little snuggle. What would you say your favourite thing about piercing in A&M is?
I love being able to work with the beautiful jewellery. I find it really inspiring to kind of work with these really curated pieces. And I love being in the same company as you.
Yeah,
Again.
full circle.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Thank you so much for watching. We've had so much fun answering all your questions. If you've got any more, definitely drop them below.
If you want to see us on your screens again, just make sure you like and subscribe, and we're always happy to go through your questions and give advice.
See you in the studio soon.